Tomorrow the universe doesn't move forward, it moves backward, and that's not a problem, that's medicine. Tomorrow at 1:48 a.m., Mercury stations retrograde at 22 degrees Pisces, and for the next 3 weeks, the planet of communication, thought, and perception appears to move backward through the sky. Most people hear Mercury retrograde and panic. They think about miscommunications and delayed flights and technology breaking. But tomorrow's retrograde isn't chaos, it's healing, deep, uncomfortable, necessary healing. Because Mercury is going retrograde in Pisces, the sign of compassion, surrender, and spiritual wounds. And when Mercury moves backward through Pisces, it doesn't just revisit the past, it heals it. This isn't about fixing yourself. Fixing implies you're broken. Tomorrow is about healing, and healing means going back to the original wound, feeling what you didn't let yourself feel the first time, and integrating the pain instead of running from it. Tomorrow, Mercury retrograde in Pisces opens the door to every emotional wound you've been carrying, every relationship that ended badly, every version of yourself you abandoned, every dream you gave up on, every time you were hurt and told yourself to just move on without actually processing it. All of that comes back, not to torture you, to heal you, because you can't heal what you won't feel, and tomorrow, the universe makes you feel it. I'm going to tell you exactly what's happening tomorrow. Why Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion, teaches us that healing requires looking at the wound without judgment. What Mercury retrograde in Pisces actually does to your emotional body, and why revisiting the past is the only way to be free of it. Which 3 signs experience this healing most intensely, and what you need to do tonight to prepare for 3 weeks of deep, transformative, emotional work. Because tomorrow, Mercury goes retrograde, and everything shifts. Not because the universe is punishing you, because it's finally giving you permission to heal. Kuan Yin doesn't fix your pain, she sits with you while you feel it. Let me tell you about Kuan Yin, the Buddhist goddess of compassion and mercy. In Chinese tradition, she's the one who hears the cries of the world. Every person suffering, every heart breaking, every wound opening, she hears all of it. And her response isn't to fix it, isn't to make the pain go away. Her response is presence. She sits with you in your suffering. She holds space for your pain. She doesn't judge you for still hurting. She doesn't tell you to get over it. She just stays. And here's what makes Kuan Yin's mythology essential for understanding tomorrow's Mercury retrograde. In some versions of her story, she was a princess who gave up her royal life to become a nun. She devoted herself to helping others, and when she was about to enter nirvana, the Buddhist concept of liberation from suffering, she stopped at the threshold. She looked back and saw all the beings still suffering, and she made a vow. She wouldn't enter nirvana until every single being was free from suffering. She chose to stay in the world of pain, not because she had to, because compassion demanded it. That's healing, real healing. It's not transcending the wound, it's not bypassing the pain, it's turning toward it, looking at it, feeling it fully, and choosing to stay present with it until it transforms. Kuan Yin doesn't heal you by taking your pain away. She heals you by showing you that your pain doesn't make you unworthy, that suffering is part of being human, that you can feel everything and still be whole. Tomorrow's Mercury retrograde in Pisces is Kuan Yin energy. For 3 weeks, you're going to revisit emotional wounds you thought you'd moved past. Relationships that ended years ago are going to come back into your awareness. Versions of yourself you abandoned are going to resurface. Dreams you gave up on are going to knock on your door again. And your first instinct is going to be to push it all away, to say, I already dealt with this, I don't want to go back there. But that resistance is the wound, the belief that you shouldn't still be affected, that you should be over it by now, that healing should be linear and permanent. Tomorrow, the universe says no. Healing isn't linear. Wounds don't close once and stay closed forever. They reopen. They need to be tended to again and again. And that's not failure. That's how healing actually works. Tomorrow, Mercury retrograde gives you permission to go back, to feel what you didn't fully feel the first time, to speak what you didn't say, to grieve what you didn't grieve. And in that revisiting, in that return to the original wound, the real healing happens. Not fixing, healing. There's a difference. What's actually happening astrologically, and why Pisces makes this retrograde about wounds, not logistics. So let me break down what's happening, because Mercury retrograde gets a bad reputation, but most of that reputation comes from Mercury retrograde in different signs. Mercury retrograde in Virgo, yes, that's about details and logistics going wrong. Mercury retrograde in Gemini, that's about miscommunication and mental chaos. But Mercury retrograde in Pisces is completely different. This isn't about your phone breaking or your emails getting lost. This is about your heart reopening to process pain you've been avoiding. Tomorrow at 1:48 a.m., Mercury stations retrograde at 22 degrees Pisces. Mercury represents communication, thought, perception, how you process information. When it goes retrograde, it appears to move backward, and astrologically, that backward motion means revisiting, rethinking, reviewing, going back to things you thought were finished and realizing they're not. Normally, that's inconvenient, but in Pisces, it's transformative. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's where everything dissolves, where boundaries blur, where the individual ego surrenders to the collective soul. Pisces rules dreams, intuition, compassion, spirituality, but it also rules wounds, emotional wounds, spiritual wounds, the kind that don't show up on the surface, the kind you carry silently, the kind you don't even realize you have until something triggers them and suddenly you're crying in your car over something that happened 10 years ago. When Mercury goes retrograde in Pisces, your rational mind can't protect you anymore. You can't think your way out of feeling. You can't logic yourself into being okay. The wounds surface, the memories resurface, the people from your past show up. Sometimes literally, sometimes just in your dreams or your thoughts, and you have to feel it, all of it. The grief you never let yourself grieve, the anger you suppressed because you were told to be nice, the sadness you pushed down because you needed to keep functioning. Here's what this looks like practically over the next 3 weeks. You're going to think about people you haven't thought about in years. You're going to have dreams about situations you thought you'd processed. You're going to randomly remember moments from your past that make you feel things you thought you'd moved beyond. And modern culture tells you that's a problem, that you should be over it by now, that revisiting the past means you're not healing. But astrology says the opposite. Revisiting is healing. Going back is how you move forward. Feeling the wound fully is how you finally let it close. Tomorrow starts 3 weeks where the universe gives you permission to not be okay, to not have it all figured out, to still be affected by things that happened years ago, to grieve endings that happened so long ago you think you shouldn't still care. That permission, that space to actually feel without judgment, that's the medicine. That's what heals. Pisces, Mercury is retrograding through your sign, and tomorrow your suppressed emotions are going to demand to be felt. If you're a Pisces sun, moon or rising, Mercury is going retrograde through your sign. That means this entire 3-week period is centered on you, on your wounds, on your healing, on the emotions you've been carrying that you haven't fully processed. And here's what's been happening. You're Pisces. You feel everything. You absorb other people's emotions. You're naturally empathetic and compassionate, but that sensitivity comes with a cost. You feel so much that sometimes you have to shut down just to survive. You dissociate, you escape, you avoid, because if you actually felt everything you're capable of feeling, you'd drown in it. Tomorrow, Mercury retrograde says it's time to stop avoiding, time to stop escaping. Time to actually feel what you've been running from, and specifically, there's an emotional wound from your past that you never fully processed. Maybe it's a relationship that ended, and you told yourself you were fine, but you weren't. Maybe it's a version of yourself you had to abandon to survive, and you never grieved that loss. Maybe it's a dream you gave up on, and you never let yourself be angry about it. Whatever it is, it's coming back. Here's what specifically happens for Pisces over the next 3 weeks. Someone from your past reaches out, or you have a dream about them, or you randomly think about them constantly. And it's not random. The universe is bringing that person back into your awareness because there's unfinished emotional business not necessarily with them, with yourself. There's something you didn't say, something you didn't feel, something you didn't let yourself grieve, and now you get the chance. But here's the critical piece for Pisces. You're going to want to make this about the other person. You're going to want to reach out, reconnect, see if there's still something there. Don't, not yet. This retrograde isn't about them, it's about you. It's about feeling what you didn't let yourself feel back then, writing the letter you never sent, crying the tears you suppressed, getting angry when you forced yourself to be understanding. That's the healing. Feeling it fully without needing the other person to fix it, or validate it, or even know about it. Tonight, identify one wound you've been avoiding, one relationship, one ending, one loss that you told yourself you were over but you're not. Write it down, and for the next 3 weeks, give yourself permission to not be over it, to still care, to still hurt. That's not weakness, that's the beginning of real healing. Virgo, Mercury, is your ruling planet, and this retrograde is showing you that healing isn't about having all the answers. Now, Virgo sun, moon, or rising, Mercury is your ruling planet, so when Mercury goes retrograde, you feel it more than most signs. And in Pisces, your opposite sign, this retrograde is specifically challenging your approach to healing. Here's what I mean. Virgo heals through analysis, through understanding, through figuring out what went wrong so you can fix it and make sure it doesn't happen again. You read the self-help books, you go to therapy, you journal, you try to understand your patterns, and all of that is valuable, but sometimes healing isn't about understanding, it's about feeling. Tomorrow, Mercury retrograde in Pisces forces you out of your head and into your heart. And for the next 3 weeks, you're going to realize that there are wounds you can't think your way through, grief that doesn't have a logical explanation, pain that doesn't make sense, emotions that aren't reasonable, and your Virgo mind is going to panic, because if you can't understand it, if you can't fix it, if you can't make it make sense, how do you heal it? Here's what specifically happens for Virgo. You're going to try to analyze an emotional wound. You're going to try to figure out why you're still affected by something that happened years ago. You're going to look for the pattern, the lesson, the reason, and you're not going to find it. Because this wound isn't about logic, it's about loss. And loss doesn't make sense. It just is. And the healing comes not from understanding why you lost what you lost, but from grieving it fully, from letting yourself be sad without needing the sadness to be reasonable. Over the next 3 weeks, pay attention to when you try to think your way out of feeling. When you start journaling about a wound and you slip into analysis mode instead of just feeling mode. When you start trying to understand why you're crying instead of just letting yourself cry. That's the pattern. That's what this retrograde is healing. Your belief that healing requires understanding, that you need to know why before you can let go. The medicine for Virgo is this: feel without analyzing, cry without needing to know why, be sad without needing to fix it. Let your heart break without immediately trying to understand the lesson. Sometimes the lesson comes later, after the feeling, after the healing, but you can't get to the lesson by skipping the feeling. Tonight, practice. Sit with one emotion you've been trying to understand, and instead of analyzing it, just feel it. For 5 minutes, no journaling, no thinking, just feeling. That's the work. Gemini, Mercury is your ruling planet too, and this retrograde is teaching you that some conversations need to happen internally first. Okay, Gemini, sun, moon, or rising, Mercury is also your ruling planet. And when Mercury goes retrograde in Pisces, your natural communication style gets completely disrupted. Here's how. Gemini processes by talking, you think out loud, you work through problems by discussing them, you heal by having conversations, and that's usually your superpower. But tomorrow, Mercury retrograde in Pisces says no. Some healing conversations can't happen externally. They have to happen internally first. For the next 3 weeks, you're going to want to reach out to people from your past. You're going to want to have the conversations you never had, clear the air, get closure, say what you didn't say back then, and some of those conversations might happen, but most of them won't, because most of those people aren't available. or they're not willing, or they've moved on, and that's going to frustrate you because you need to talk it out. That's how you process. But here's what this retrograde is teaching you. The conversation you need to have isn't with them, it's with yourself. There's a part of you, a younger version, a past self, that needs to hear something from you, that needs you to acknowledge their pain, to validate their experience, to say, what happened to you wasn't okay. You deserved better. I see you. That internal conversation is the one that heals, not the external one. Here's what specifically happens for Gemini over the next 3 weeks. You draft messages you never send. You write emails you don't deliver. You rehearse conversations in your head that never actually happen. And at first, that feels like failure, like you're stuck. But that's actually the work. The drafting, the writing, the rehearsing. That's you processing. That's you saying out loud what you needed to say. And the fact that it doesn't get sent doesn't make it less powerful. Sometimes the healing happens in the saying, not in the being heard. But there's also this. One person from your past might actually reach out during this retrograde, and you're going to have the chance for that conversation you've been wanting. And when it happens, don't script it. Don't plan what you're going to say. Just be present. Just be honest. Because the conversation you think you need to have might not be the one that actually heals. Trust the flow. Trust that whatever gets said is what needed to be said. Tonight, write a letter to your past self. The version of you that went through the wound you're still carrying. Tell them what they needed to hear back then. Tell them they're going to be okay. Tell them you see them. You don't have to send it anywhere. Just write it. That's the healing conversation. That's the one that shifts everything. The healing protocol and why you can't rush retrograde medicine. All right, let me give you the protocol for these next 3 weeks, because Mercury retrograde in Pisces is medicine, but medicine requires time to work. You can't rush it. You can't force it. You have to let it move through you at its own pace. Here's how you support that process. First, stop trying to move on. For the next 3 weeks, if something from your past surfaces, a memory, a person, a wound, don't immediately try to get over it. Don't tell yourself, I shouldn't still be thinking about this. Just let it be there. Notice it, acknowledge it, give it space. The surfacing is the healing, the remembering is the medicine. Second, feel without fixing. This is the hardest one. When emotions come up, your instinct is going to be to do something about them, to journal through them, to talk them out, to understand them, and sometimes that's appropriate, but sometimes you just need to feel them. Sit on your floor and cry without knowing why. Let yourself be angry without needing it to be productive. Be sad without needing it to transform into a lesson. Raw feeling is healing. It doesn't always need to be processed. Third, write letters you don't send. Mercury retrograde is about communication. But in Pisces, that communication doesn't have to be external. Write to people from your past. Write to younger versions of yourself. Write to the dreams you gave up. Write to the relationships that ended. Say everything you didn't say. Pour it all out. And then don't send it. Burn it. Bury it. Keep it. Whatever feels right. The healing is in the saying, not in the sending. Fourth, trust the timing of what resurfaces. If someone from your past shows up during this retrograde, pay attention. Not because you're supposed to get back together, not because there's unfinished business with them specifically, but because they're appearing now for a reason. There's something about that connection, that wound, that ending that you need to revisit. Trust that the universe is bringing it back at the exact right time for your healing. And fifth, be gentle with yourself. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is not about productivity. It's not about having breakthroughs every day. It's not about healing being linear or visible or measurable. Some days you're going to cry in your car for no reason. Some days you're going to be fine and then suddenly devastated. Some days you're going to feel like you're going backward. You're not. You're healing, and healing looks messy. Let it be messy. All right, tomorrow at 1:48 a.m., Mercury stations retrograde at 22 degrees Pisces. For the next 3 weeks, the universe opens the door to every wound you've been carrying, not to hurt you, to heal you. Kuan Yin sits with you in your pain. The memories resurface, the people come back. The emotions demand to be felt, and you get the chance to finally, fully, completely process what you've been avoiding. Do the protocol. Stop trying to move on. Feel without fixing. Write without sending. Trust the timing. Be gentle. This isn't punishment. This is medicine. And tomorrow, the healing begins.